And now a few words from our sponsors. The majority of these guys are local to the central Illinois area. They all have ties, deep ties to the baseball community. So if you see a need for any of these services, please go patronize these guys. We really appreciate them. Thank you so much.
We are also brought to you by Jared Washko of Washko Strength and Speed, located at 3604 North Peoria Road, 217-899-3233, WashcoStrengthandSpeed.com. I think Jared is the premier trainer for youth athletics in the Springfield area, specifically baseball and softball. He is on it, from his training modalities to his throwing programs to speed to getting stronger to getting faster. The proof is in the pudding. Jared cranks out athletes at high levels that go on to the collegiate levels. Go see Jared for all your strength and speed needs. We are also brought to you by 226 Sports, located at 3604 North Peoria Road, 217-670-1609. Springfield info at turn2outs.com. Multiple entities under this umbrella. Turn 2 training, which is team or individual instruction. Teams can come in and rent it out, or an individual can come in and get instruction from a top-of-the-line instructor. There's the Extreme Baseball and Softball Club, run by my buddy Kyle Welch. They have 9U all the way up to 17U teams, and Washco Strength and Speed, one of our other sponsors. We are officially backing this entity, and it's because of Kyle Welch. I love this guy. I love his passion. I love his knowledge. I love his vision. He's an absolute baseball dude. He knows hitting. Like I said, he has a vision to grow this into what Springfield deserves, and that's a top-of-the-line facility to help young ball players progress. I believe in Kyle as a person and as a leader of young men. Go see 226 Sports. We are also brought to you by Matt Brewer. Matt is an attorney here in town at the law offices of Stephen Kelly. Matt exclusively practices in the areas of personal injury and workers' compensation. He can be reached at 217-544-8000 or mbrewer@stephenkelly.com. I loved competing against this guy growing up. He was an SHG grad, 2002, stud in football and baseball. Went on to star for Dan Callahan at SIU Carbondale, and then had a one-year career pitching in the Diamondbacks organization. I ran into this guy the other day. He looks like he could still lace him up. We appreciate you, Matt. Roll with how this is going. You're electric, man. Your ability to recall some of these details and your thoughts and your openness, man. This is what this podcast is about. I really appreciate it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say you do a great job getting prepared and asking really good, intimate questions that, I haven't really given much thought over. And I think that's just a gift you have to kind of get that info out, and
thank you.
I've appreciated my time so far.
I love that, buddy. Let's just keep on moving then. You got to rub elbows with some interesting people in Sugar Land. I remember when Tracy McGrady had a little stint where he tried to pitch. Can you give me a little blip on that?
Yeah, so he came in and he expressed interest with Gary and Sugar Land.
The basketball all-star, if you guys don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, and he always thought he was better at baseball than basketball in high school, and he kind of held on to that, and he wanted a chance. And Gary, and that's kind of the cool thing about independent ball is like you can bring in whoever you want. You can bring in your 4-year-old and give him a contract and call himself a professional baseball player. The freedom to do that is kind of unique with independent ball, and that's the story for T-Mac. I can honestly say he gave everything he got into trying to be a pitcher in pro ball. And there was no questioning his work ethic. There was no questioning, his just effort. And we gave him a chance. We knew he would compete, kind of. We knew facing professional hitters for the first time since high school, was going to be a challenge. And we didn't really know how that was going to go, but the guy was a great guy in the clubhouse. He was very selfless with his time, and he brought along his nutritionist that made 3 meals a day for us, and gourmet meals at the least. So he was very generous with what he could offer, but I can also honestly say that he is the reason we did not win the first half of that season in 2014. He lost. he barely got out of the third inning if he got to it. He never came out with a lead. And I think we lost the division that first half by like 2 games, maybe, which you take him out, we clinch early, But I mean, he was good for Sugar Land. Obviously, it's a neighbor for where he lived and played his career with the Houston Rockets. And, that only sold out the seats and generated money and popularity for our team, which we kind of did on our own, but he helped as in that third year with the Skeeters' existence. Yeah. So great guy. I remember what was unique in 2014 was that usually there's an all-star game where the one division all-stars play the other division all-stars. But because we knew we had something special in Sugar Land, especially having T-Mac on our roster, they decided that the All-Star game was going to be played the Skeeters versus the Atlantic League All-Stars. And T-Mac was going to have that for the start in the game against the All-Stars. Yeah. So this is 3 months into the season. The first half is over, and I'm catching T-Mac in the All-Star game. And he hadn't recorded a single strikeout in 7 or 8 starts that first half. And he didn't tell anybody, but he knew he was retiring after that start.
Okay.
And I'm catching him, and it was the third out of the inning, and we finally recorded his first strikeout, and we come off the field together, and he fist bumps me, and he goes, "T. Scott, I'm glad you caught my first recorded strikeout and my last one I'll ever have because I'm retiring right now." And I'm like, what? We're in the middle of an all-star game, dude. It's not even sanctioned at bats here, so you can't call it a strikeout. And why are you leaving us right now? You've done all this work and effort. He was on ESPN. They were following us everywhere we went. Yeah. Actually, we did have an ESPN contract that televised our games for those first 3 years anyway. So we were always on ESPN3. You could watch us. Yeah. But, I was like, why are you leaving right now? You did all this work, you put all this effort in. Right. And he's like, I don't belong here. He looks at me. He's just like, you guys are way too good for me. It's like, I gave it a shot. And I'm not, he was at peace with it, but he just knew he couldn't compete. And I think he knew he cost us a first half championship. And so he didn't want to do that to us anymore because he was a stand-up guy. He was a real grounded human being, that. Cool. Yeah. So that was a pretty unique, cool experience. But my competitive drive said I wanted that first half.
Yeah, I totally get that. You've talked multiple times. You said you buried baseball in your backyard. Has it been resurrected in any way? Do you feel better about it now?
No, I still just kind of, I don't know. It's kind of like this shadow I've casted with baseball in my life. And
interesting.
I think I do firmly believe that I still can be a great manager in pro ball. I think, you got to be a student of the game. And I was that, much so in my career. I always talk strategy with Gary. He even uses my advice during games. Like if I'm on third after legging out a triple and he wants to know, he goes, "Hey, T. Scott, do you want to go on contact with one out here or do you want to see it through?" And I'm like, well, that's the dice you roll. He kind of just wants my opinion on those things. And it would have to be a very sweet deal for me to leave fire and to do something like that, but I'm not ruling it out.
Interesting.
Baseball to me was such a big part of my life. It's so hard to say that I don't have any involvement anymore. Yeah. And because I don't know, I just feel like I could have a lot to offer for young players. And especially like those guys that are 20 to 22 years old that are figuring out life and figuring out pro ball at the same time. I feel like I would be a valuable asset to those types of players, but
I totally agree.
I don't think I could dumb it down to the high school level,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I want to mentor young adults. I don't really want to mentor young kids, if that makes sense. In a baseball.
Yes. Sure. I totally get that. What
not necessarily. I'm not saying that in a life regard,
Yes, I get that.
Just baseball wise, yeah. So, but I might come back to a point in my life where I consider throwing my hat in the ring, but it's not going to be anytime soon. I want to be around my kids. I want to see them and mature them, and my focus is on them and not anything else anymore. And it's kind of a selfless thing to say. So mostly because I had a 12-year pro ball career. Now I just threw it away, but. I think there's time for that. And if God, has that in store for me, I'm not going to ignore it. And so we may revisit that. We don't know.
I like that. I like what you just said about being selfless for your kids, because baseball is a pretty selfish pursuit. It's all about, even as a manager. I mean, it really is. Like, I remember reading about Tony La Russa going away for the season, and he wouldn't even bring his family with him because he wanted to be so, focused and whatnot. And it is.
It's all about what I want to get out of this and what I can do for this. It's a very selfish. I mean, it's an individual sport played in a team structure, and
it's strange, right?
It is. And ego can be a good part of it. It could be a really bad part of it too. But it takes a special balance to be able to handle it the right way.
What do you miss about the game most, if you miss anything?
Oh, so I spent a lot of time last night thinking about that answer,
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because I can't say I don't miss it, even though I buried it, kind of thing. But I've got to find this answer for you because I really gave it a lot of thought. I'm just trying to dig through here. The biggest thing really is the competitive drive, such a simple concept of I'm going to beat you and I'm going to do what I can to beat you. That competitive drive is something I really miss. Because it's at the end of the day, it's just a game. It's not life or death like firefighting is, it's a simple game, but taken very seriously. And and I miss that. I miss that alpha male mentality where, a guy's throwing a ball and I've got a stick and I'm going to hit it as far as I can. It's just that.
I get that.
And, I miss being in incredible shape. I got this little dad bod now, but don't let it fool you. At one point, it was kind of, I was running a 5:05 mile as a warm up for my off-season workout routine. And as a 6'3", 230 guy, that's hard to do. But and I miss being able to do those things. And I miss the clubhouse camaraderie, the group of 30 guys coming together to achieve a certain goal. And that's what was special in Sugar Land, was because we screened guys that weren't bad apples and we got rid of the ones that were, just because we knew what happened on the field was a byproduct of what we had in the clubhouse. And having close-knit core group of good human beings was what I missed forming. And and because we did that, we had so many special times and moments, and we won, and we had the best. In 2013, we had the best winning percentage in all of pro ball, all levels.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I said, that's a byproduct of what we established in the clubhouse. So I miss sweating, under the lights at 7:00. I miss the romantic, drama involved, and, it's cliche, but it's true. Getting the big hit, getting, the walk-off homer, and seeing yourself celebrate around those bases that you didn't even know you had a celebration for. It's like I miss how organic baseball is, and the unpredictability of it all, and just knowing that I had a special talent, and knowing that that talent is not on display anymore.
Oh, that's interesting. That is fascinating. Yeah, like you can't use it anymore.
Yeah, it's buried. It's like, and it's gone. It's hidden under a dad bod. It's buried in the backyard, and it was such a special thing for such a long time. It was a great gift God gave me, but knowing that that's not going to be given glory for, is something I miss. So yeah, I hope that adequately answered that.
That was perfect. I totally get it. Up until about a year or two ago, I used to just take BP by myself, hit off a tee sometimes, and people would be like, "Why are you still doing that?" I wasn't playing in a league. And my thought was, I spent my whole life like creating the swing, right? Building this and refining it, and I just felt like I liked doing it. I still wanted to do it just for the love of the game. I would go hit off a tee just because. It'd be like you would never stop playing piano because you didn't make it to, whatever the highest level of piano is if you spent your life playing piano. So anyway,
I'm scared to go do that like you did. I want to do that, but I'm afraid of liking it too much again.
It's addicting.
Yeah,
it's addicting
because I know if those first 3 swings are like effortless power, like I was given the gift of, happens, and I like it too much, I'm gonna convince myself again. Okay, let's get back into this. And I'm afraid of that happening.
That's a great answer. What makes a great manager, and what makes a bad manager?
So, we kind of dove in on that, and Bull and Gary are very good representations of what you're asking. And the only other I've come across in pro ball was Jim Horner in A-ball. He was with me through those 4 years of stagnant, treading, despite doing well. But a great manager, somebody that encourages, because it's so easy to be discouraged in baseball that bad thoughts start to creep in. But if you got a good manager that knows your skill level, knows your potential, sees your ceiling, and encourages you every day, that keeps you, that tiny little shred of encouragement keeps you going. Gary had that. Bull definitely had that. And I've been very blessed. I really have been with my career and managers as far as that's concerned. I've had great human beings teach me a lot, and I can call all of them mentors. And not everybody can say that. I know a lot of players that run into a lot of bad coaches, a lot of just bad human beings, honestly, that just don't care about you personally, or are all about the results, chasing results. And I don't care about you if you can't get me those results, kind of thing. I know they're out there, but I've been blessed with having great ones, and I've been very fortunate. I learned a lot along the way.
Maybe this is kind of answers it already, but my next question was, did you have a special relationship with any managers or coaches along the way? You kind of just talked about 3. Do you think that kind of covers it already?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I can't think of. I've always had great relationships with my managers, mostly because as a catcher you have to. You're not only managing yourself, you're managing a pitching staff. You got to be able, as a catcher, you got to be personable, approachable, willing to work with others to achieve a common goal. So if that's demanded out of me as a catcher, I'm going to demand that out of a manager. And I think that kind of realization helped form those managers and me as a catcher and forced us to be really good to work with. Even if you were a bad manager and I didn't know it, or a bad human and I didn't know it, our predicament, our circumstances forced us to have a good one, but I've been blessed with managers that have always been receptive of what I have to offer when it comes to feedback and stuff like that. And, I've had the ability to just work with others is a huge trait, and of all different personality types. You got 30 different personalities in that clubhouse from 30 different countries in the world. You got to have a special characteristic about you to make that work well.
Dude, you're just killing this, man. You're far surpassing even what I thought you could have been during this. You're going so far down the rabbit hole on these. It's perfect. Speaking of, that's a great segue into this. Did you learn Spanish to connect at all, or like some words to help, connect with Latin pitchers?
Yeah. So I took 3 years in high school before all that. So I had a pretty good foundation set. I was able to write a term paper in Spanish after those 3 years in high school. So yeah, I had a good foundation, but in pro ball, what pro ball taught me was the slang and derogatory terms in Spanish. I always had the ability to communicate with those lines. But I developed a new vocabulary in Spanish after pro ball.
That's true. I'm kind of fascinated by this one. Is there an art to developing a rapport with an umpire as a catcher? You always see them kind of talking a little bit and pleasantries back and forth. Is there an art to that?
Absolutely. I mean, you got to be a psych major to, do work well with an umpire and get on his page. But having the ability to lure an umpire to get on your page with your pitcher's strike zone is a craft in itself. And I think I averaged 8 ejections a year, but I probably won over 90% of the other umpires those years. The ejections came because I knew they were wrong, and there wasn't changing his mind. And you can go F yourself, since you can't get work with me while I'm working with you. So I was hot-headed early on in my career. If I couldn't get that umpire to get on my page with our zone, I got a lot more docile later in my career. But throughout all of it, the ability to take what you get, to exploit the little things, and communication is everything. And communication is the number one biggest thing in any relationship, professional, personal, spiritual. Communication has to be present for it to be successful. And I was always talking to the umpire. Some of them didn't like to talk at all, and if that was the case, I knew to keep my mouth shut and not offer any body language, holding a strike on the black, for more than half a second. So,
is that about the max you feel like you can hold it without being disrespectful?
Yeah, just enough to let them know without showing them up was,
I think this is a strike. Yeah.
Yeah. Without the manager or the crowd even knowing I did it, that was, the good umpires can recognize that.
Subtle. The subtle parts of the game, man. You're kicking up so many little subtle things, man. This is beautiful. Keep going. Sorry.
No, but like you said, it's a craft. It's an art form. Some catchers that just don't have that skill set to be able to communicate or adapt are the ones that just don't get the pitchers, can't exploit the pitchers, ability to achieve a little extra on each side or achieve a little up and down, and that's fine. The strike zone will stay consistent for that game for those catchers and pitchers, but I'm always trying to get a little extra from my guy. And, the ability to do that. I mean, I've won a lot throughout my career, and my pitchers I take personal because, I'm kind of just the drummer of a band. They're the lead singer. And
the drummer. And you keep it going, yeah.
You can't keep it beat without, having that kind of flow and synchrony, So I just felt like that was something I did well. and I use to my advantage. So I think pitchers know that. I know pitchers really liked throwing to me. So that rapport that you develop with an umpire and your pitcher during a game in an instant is so big in those first 3 batters, of the game.
I love that, man. Every answer, man, you're killing it. Who are your 5 greatest hitters of all time? What do you think?
Ooh, I don't think I saw that question yesterday, but let's see. 5 greatest hitters. First one to mind, Ty Cobb. Second one, can't leave out Pete Rose. Gotta say Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle, Tony Gwynn.
Hey, you cannot beat that list. I love it. Moving on, I saw a few names from your career when I was just looking through rosters that I thought were interesting. I wanted to know if you had any thoughts on them. I saw you got to spend a little time with Kyle Seager, Kevin Kiermaier, even Rafael Palmeiro for a game. Was that like an indie ball or something?
Yeah.
And then I imagine Roger Clemens was around a little bit. Didn't he have like he pitched to Colby one time?
Yeah. So that was the year I was with York playing against them, but he came back. But he was still around when Kobe was the everyday catcher in 13 when I was the backup there. So Roger and I, we talked a lot about catching, pitching. He threw BP quite a bit, and he threw really good BP. And he really liked my swing and stuff. And Rafael Palmeiro, that was unique in itself because his son Patrick was on our team, and that we recruited. And he was there for 2 years. But Rafi, I mean, those guys were, obviously just trying to help untaint their names.
Some fans in.
Yeah, that too. But Rafi was awesome. He's on my list here as one of the sweetest left-handed swings I've seen.
Yeah.
And, I've rubbed some elbows with some pretty cool guys. Even like celebrity guest appearances that we have on the game, like Charlie Pride or Zach Brown or some of these Texas country singers we allow in the clubhouse before they perform at our stadium afterwards. So it's been cool.
I love that. I want to touch on this. I always remember this as being very unusual, and I think it got coached out of you quickly in pro ball. But you remember your interesting thumb thing, where coming up, this guy would have like his thumbs. I don't know if I can explain this, going up like a golf grip on his bat. And I'd never, ever seen anyone before or after you swing like that. Where did that come from? When did that get coached out of you?
I think I started that in high school, and I think it was because of golf. It just felt more natural in my hands. I feel like the wrist wasn't going to break or roll over. That top hand wasn't going to roll over as easy if I had my thumb up, which I think resulted in me popping out a lot more than I probably should have been. I mean, I hit the ball as well as I ever did in high school when I had that grip, and but it was
college too. You were still swinging that way in college, weren't you?
Yeah, and college, and my first 3 years in pro ball. Yeah, so I went to instructional league in Arizona for my third fall in a row, and they finally addressed it, and they finally convinced me to change it. And I spent about 12 weeks in the cage in the fall off season in Arizona with my hitting coordinator, simply just swinging with the correct grip. And it felt so freaking unorthodox for me, but I'm glad I did, because I immediately began to see the change and result in it.
Benefits. What was it holding you back in any ways, you felt like? Once you made the switch?
So what that resulted in was, with the golf grip, I was basically getting my hands to the zone and point of contact, but immediately taking that top hand off and not finishing my extension through the zone with my barrel. And when I started holding the bat, with a orthodox grip, I was noticing that I was extending a lot further through the zone with a high two-handed finish and then letting go at the very end. Mm-hmm. And what that did was kept my barrel in the zone a lot longer for like off-speed pitches or low pitches. So
awesome.
I didn't realize that until I actually committed to it and saw that.
Cool. I've got a question here for you that was not on the list. It was an add-in from Joey Albsmeyer here, but I think you'll be able to handle it just fine. People love to talk about progress you make year to year as a hitter, as a pitcher, as a fielder. How do you get better as a catcher? Obviously parts of the game, framing, blocking, calling games. Does that come with reps? Or are you practicing these things?
It comes with so the only time you can practice reps are obviously like the off-season instructional leagues, or and when you do practice those reps, you kind of take those reps to an extreme. So for receiving, for instance, you're going to set up your pitching machine to 110. You're going to put action on that ball, and you really got to see it early, and then you're going to start moving spots on the plate in order to present the pitch, in an unpredictable way. It's coming at you at a very high speed. So the biggest thing for me was my body. My body was inhibiting a lot of those things and it was mostly hip flexibility. And they put me through hot yoga for an entire offseason too to open these hips up. Because I'm a tall catcher. You don't really see many 6'3" guys that catch every day. And once I was able to physically allow myself to get into a catching stance and position, everything became a lot easier. So to answer your question, reps to an extreme is a big thing, and flexibility for putting yourself in the best position for those reps is the best way to do it. I mean, balls in the dirt, you can wear yourself out all day long, and that's what I did, and it worked. And even my catching coordinator for the Mariners, he tells me before every instructional league, I'm going to bury your nutsack out there on field 2 before I'm done with you. And I'm like, okay. I think we were going to work. So
what was your best pop time ever?
So they really don't record. They didn't really record that or pay much attention to that in pro ball.
Once you're in.
Yeah. But I remember in Lincoln Land, I had a 184, and Pinky and I were always trying to compete against each other. Yeah. And he was always around a 1.9. I was, on my good days, I was anywhere in the mid 1.8s.
Yeah.
But the clock is always subjected to, so that's on both stop, wristwatch time. Yeah. But
were there any swings that you tried to emulate?
So good question there. No, that's my answer. Good for you. It's not for egotistical reasons at all. It's just because somebody a long time ago, before high school, I believe, said, you can try to look at these guys on video and try and do what they're doing, but they're not Travis Scott. You're Travis Scott. Just go up there and feel athletic. Just be an athlete. And that stuck to me. So that comes with the feel of the game. And, I never tried to look like anybody. I never tried to swing like anybody. I just tried to feel athletic and do what just felt good.
That's amazing. I spent way too much time looking at other pro guys' swings and trying to emulate things and force myself into movements sometimes that weren't for me. They weren't for my body type, for my levers. And I love how you put that, man. What about catching? There's certainly catching styles. And were there any catchers that you really thought were cool and tried to emulate?
So when I was in pro ball and I'm battling my own body, with flexibility, I always looked at the guys with the big old free hips like Jorge Posada and Sal Fasano, the big Italian. They had such free hips, which allowed them to do so many good things like present that low strike really well, or just flick your knees out and drop and block so easily, So I always admired that because I knew I was fighting myself with that flexibility, which inhibited me to do all these things that a good, you got to do. So Brad Ausmus was another guy that I thought mentally handled his game really well. You could see it with his pitchers and his rapport. So yeah, I would say I kind of try to emulate those guys as a catcher.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right, here we go. This is gonna be fun for me too. What do you classify as the 3 prettiest swings of all time? Your favorite swings?
Yep. So like I said, Rafael Palmeiro's one of those 3. I think it's just like, so when you ask the prettiest swing, what I think of is effortless power and just, almost like it's on autopilot and a flick of the wrist and it's going 450, So Griffey had that. Palmeiro had that. And another guy that I think people forget a lot about is Adrian Gonzalez. I thought he had a real effortless swing.
He did. Interesting. Those are 3 answers I wasn't expecting to get from you. I like that. How have your thoughts on the swing changed? I mean, obviously you went through a whole professional education on hitting from Lincoln Land through pro ball.
It really hasn't changed at all. I think the swing is the swing. A lot of these new age, instructors are trying to teach a different thing that has been working for 110 years. And it kills me to see it. I've always just said, whenever I'm working out and whenever I'm trying to achieve success in the cage, I'm just trying to hit low backspin line drives. That is my goal. How I did that, the swing path will determine that, but nothing has changed, as far as that kind of philosophy goes. To me, it's just short to it, long through it. That's always been my mindset.
I remember you saying that at Lincoln Land, that exact phrase. Wow. Yeah, I remember you saying that. That's cool. Moving forward, do you have any hitting absolutes where you feel like, in terms of like, these are absolute, there's a lot of gray area when it comes to people's mechanics and whatnot.
You got to be able to see it to hit it. And in order to see it, you can't be bouncing all over the place. I think 3 things need to stay in place and stay in line. And that's where your eyesight is at, in your stance, that front shoulder staying still and staying with your eyes, and that front stride, how it lands, needs to stay in line. But they all need to be aggressively controlled. If your eyes are bouncing, your head's all over the place, you're never going to pick up that off speed, especially at 90 miles an hour. So to answer your question, steady eyes, in line, and controlled aggressiveness.
Were there any drills or feels that you felt got you right, you really liked?
Nothing like mechanically to counter a deficit, but I always believe that the ball doesn't lie. So what I like to do, and if I wanted to really see what I was doing wrong, I would get on the field, the big diamond. I would get somebody throwing me soft toss underhand from 10 feet out, and the ball flight's going to tell me everything.
Right, if it's veering off or what you're seeing the correct backspin, trueness.
Exactly. How it dives over the infield, how it carries through the infield, if it's got top spin or backspin, if it's, that to me was how I recognized a deficit. Now, what drills did I use to correct that? I didn't. I just kept hitting until I got that goal of low backspin line drives.
Did you at all have a thought of like looking top of half of the ball, bottom half of the ball, or anything like that?
No, okay. Never used that visual mid pitch. I think that's too hard to process in too short time. I really just, my focus was how early can I see it, and then how steady can I be until I take my A hack.
Yeah. So approach wise, this was something that I eventually learned in indie ball, and I'm not comparing my career to yours, but I eventually got taught to essentially pick a side of the plate to be aggressive on and spit on the other half of the plate. And that was really beneficial for me. Did you similarly think that way, or others, or what are your thoughts on approach that way?
I think that's good. I think it works for some people. I never was. I knew my strengths, and my strength was pull happy, right center to right field, and that's where I'm doing damage. So when I mean, so if I'm facing one of the all-time greats, I might be forced to pick a side of the plate because they're that good. But I don't think I ever got to that point where I had to give up on the plate and give up on that pitch and cut my chances in half. I always thought as a left-handed, with strengths to the pull side, I crowded the plate. I made everything inside. So,
oh man, okay,
yeah.
Did you ever guess pitches, or just like? I mean, obviously you're educated guesses as you go. You're a catcher. You know how games are called.
Never.
Really?
I tried to leave my head out of it as much as I could because I tend to overanalyze sometimes, and if that happens, you don't have enough time to do all that. I mean, Gary Gaetti tells me stories about how he would guess and successfully guess, and it turned his career around. I'm not that guy. I've always been the see and react guy, and not everyone can be that see and react guy, but I trusted my hands. I had great hands. I had fast hands, and I had the ability to just see and react. And that's why I think, visually is the number one thing. You can't do anything unless you see something.
Well said.
And so I was big on that.
I think you've already answered this, but do you still have any what ifs? And I think you already have, essentially, a different, a lot. Sorry, please go ahead. Do you?
Yeah. So what ifs? I don't want to get that confused with the regrets. But what ifs? Like I consider myself a Christian, and I just if I start doubting if I started throwing what ifs in my head, that's me.
That's doubting God's plan.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that.
Okay.
He's the reason for the talent and skill I've got and had, and if it didn't work out how I wanted to work out, it's not because it's how it's not supposed to work out. Okay. So that's a tough question to answer because, it's like, I always tell myself, man, I was this close to the big leagues. I had a path to the big leagues and I didn't get there. How do I feel about that? And it's hard for me to answer that to myself, because it just, if I do that, I'm questioning God's will for me, and I don't want to do that. And so, like, when it comes to that, I'm happy and at peace with how everything happened, and beautiful, because it's for a reason. In firefighting, I just feel like I'm a firefighter because it's God's calling for me to be a firefighter out. Yeah. I don't think it's made for everybody. It's definitely not for the weak of heart or thin skinned, but really I just want to help people, honestly. And that was an easy career to choose to do that.
Yeah. Well said, man. You're killing it. Best things to do on bus trips.
Play music, especially interpretive music. So, like, for example, we would come up with intros for some of the guys for the next day on bus trips, just to play as a prank. And that happened to me. Somebody played "I'm Too Sexy" while I came up to bat. And, it's just like, it stops you in your tracks when you don't hear your typical walk up. And, just those tiny little things to get under the skin of your teammates in a good, fun way is funny. Drinking is always included on bus trips, and that created a lot of fun, memorable times. In the Atlantic League, we would always drive through New York City overnight, and we would see those lights, and we would convince the bus driver to stop at some shady, under low income area just to see what we could see, while we were after about 5 whiskeys or so. But just, playing the cards, playing the music, trying not to be the first guy to pass out was always a fun game because you knew you were going to get, ransacked.
Do you have a most memorable bomb?
Okay, good question. I've got 3 that really come to mind.
Okay.
One was one I've already touched on with the Mariners when every roving instructor was in town to put us in the championship series. Mm-hmm. And then the second one would be in 2016 when we won a Skeeters championship for the first ever. Was in game 2. We're going into the 9th inning. It's 0-0, pitching duel to the extreme. And I'm on deck to lead off the 8th. And our leadoff hitter, Jeremy Barfield, who was the league MVP, gets hit by pitch. So before the inning even started, I saw their lefty specialist, who's got my freaking number, run down to the bullpen and start warming up. So I knew I was facing him. And I'm probably a career 1 for 14 with a bleeder single off him with about 8 strikeouts. So, and I go into that at bat. I don't remember much walking up to the plate. I really don't. But I do remember I'm just going to swing as hard as I can right here. I'm going to get one, and he threw uncharacteristically a 2-seamer that started away that just ran into my barrel. And it was the first pitch and only pitch he threw for the game. And I hit a 2-run homer in the right field. And the craziest thing is it fell in the lap of Gary Gaetti's son.
What? Oh,
yeah.
man.
And I've got the ball right here in my display here. Yeah. So that was number 2. That was very special. That led to a championship and a playoff sweep. We went 9-0 during that championship run. And the last one was my twin brothers.
God, I knew that had to be in there, man. That's special. Yeah.
It was hard to just pick one, but those were the 3 biggest that, you can say you rose to the occasion on.
Nastiest stuff do you ever face as a hitter and then also caught?
Good question, because there's a lot. So like I said, the ability to see the ball early is everything for me as a hitter. Mm-hmm. And the 2 guys I've got on here were guys that really hit the ball really well with electric plush stuff in their entire repertoire. And those guys were JJ Putz and BJ Ryan.
Okay.
BJ Ryan had a funky left-handed hard delivery that just hit the ball really well. I never saw spin. So I'm just swinging mindlessly blind at anything he throws. Mm-hmm. And it was really hard. So that made baseball 0 fun that day.
Wait, were you catching or hitting?
Hitting.
Okay.
Yeah. Catching the nastiest stuff I caught was probably Felix Hernandez, and that's a pretty easy one to say. Yeah, but it was like a video game with 5 pitches. If I want to hear, it's going to be here, and I can expect
exactly where you wanted it. Right? Yeah, man.
So there's very little glove movement, very little reaction outside of the zone. I mean, it's like a video game playing against a deaf mute kid. It's electric, precise command with all of it.
That's amazing. Yeah, King Felix. What a run that guy had. Number of choice. I'm sure you had some numbers throughout your career, but was there like one that you really preferred?
I only had one, and it was 16. And the only time throughout my entire playing life was when I was at Lincoln Land, because it was Bull's number.
That's right. Why 16?
16 was given to me by my middle school Illini Central coach. But it really wasn't significant as a number. But when he gave me the number 16, he also gave me a Bible verse that reminded me of him. And
Colossians.
Colossians 3:23.
Remember that was always your thing.
You got a great memory. You're remembering stuff 20 years ago and so little things.
Yeah.
So I kind of grouped number 16 and that Bible verse together for the rest of my career, and it's still. I mean, I use it all the time, and
I remember it was always under the bill of your hat.
Yep, and it always has been, always will be if I have a hat. So, 16 just kind of came along with it, and that was the only time in my career was at Lincoln Land. It wasn't.
All right, batting gloves of choice. Did you have a preference?
3 ones. Because I went through a lot. 3? Anything that was 3. I know you remember me being a sweatsman, so I sweat and ripped through a lot of batting gloves and went through. Mm-hmm. So if they were free, they were for me.
Maple or ash?
Good one. It started out as ash only really because I didn't know much different, and that's what all the pro stocks came, in the lower
Poo stocks.
So like I really didn't use maple until I got like high A, double A, and
Okay.
I always thought it was a little too dense, a little too heavy, but
Same.
I was convinced otherwise, and correctly so. I broke a lot of ash, and it was mostly because of swing speed and the drop 3. So like I made the adjustment to maple, and when I did, I went from a 34-31 to a 34.5 32.
Really?
And I had much better success.
Really?
I shouldn't say it slowed my swing down, but I wasn't living on the label as much. I don't know why, but I don't know. I had much better success after that, and much better power and consistent contact.
What was the model that you ended up settling on?
It was always usually either a C243 early on was always my go-to, but when I made
that power hitter's bat,
light or thin handle, big barrel, top barrel heavy, and then
cupped or not.
Either. Usually the drop 3 when I was using those C243s, they were always cupped unless you wanted an extra, half ounce or whatever. But when I made the transition to maple, I switched from 243s to AP5s, which was the Albert Pujols model, and which was a little more tapered, a little more balanced, and I think that was necessary for those dimensions of the bigger bat I used. But that's how I ended my career. I swung that AP5 from 2009 through 2017.
Did you try any other, like when you first got into pro ball, getting a feel for what models were out there?
Oh yeah. I went through them all. Nothing felt good. Nothing other than just like the
C243.
Yeah, that was it. That was all that felt right. I mean, it was probably the most comparable to the aesthetic of a aluminum bat was how I kind of felt.
How it looks, but not. A lot of guys out of college, what I think I know, go to the light model. They go to the C271, the T141 because they feel balanced and light like a metal bat. But then eventually you realize there's physics in play, and you got to get some bat head out there.
Yeah. I was always I always thought the bigger the barrel, the less area to miss.
Like that. Did you use Moda stick, pine tar, tape it, anything like that?
I used it all. I thought it was all good. My routine on a new bat usually consisted of pine tar first, rosin next, tough spray third, and then a little bit of dirt when I go up.
Do you have any superstitions?
Yeah, I did. I had to fold my pregame clothes in a perfect pile before every game right next to my locker. I felt like that was just something I could control. And, in an uncontrollable career, I felt like I had control on that. And it just kind of helped develop a routine pregame that I religiously stuck to.
Glove of choice. Brand.
Glove. It was always the 35-inch All-Star Pro Elite Japanese leather two-tone. Always. And
what model? Wait, what brand is that? Sorry.
All-Star.
All-Star. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was the two-tone black and tan. They were the only ones that made a 35-inch glove. Rawlings had a 34. Everybody else had a 34, but
you like the bigger one.
Yeah. I like the bigger pocket, the deeper pocket.
So, how long would it take you to break in one of those?
5 days usually. Really? My break-in process, I use what every training room has in their training room, and it's called Albaline. It's like a moisturizing massage cream, and I would use it immediately before I would go play catch with it or catch a bullpen with it, and I would do that for 5 days straight, and then take a ball, put it in the pocket, wrap it with elastic wrap, and then throw it in the bag.
Really?
5 days in this game.
How long? How long would a catcher's mitt last you?
I would at least go through one a year. I would always have 3. One would be my gamer, one would be my backup, and my third would be what I'm breaking in.
Oh, I love that. We already touched on your pregame hitting routine some here. Do you have any thoughts on, it's kind of a topic now these days in hitting, feel versus real?
So I looked at, kind of explain to me what you asked with that.
Yeah, so there's it kind of ties in with all the hitting coaches out there these days that have kind of like some exaggerated drills and things to try to, clean up bat path. Like if someone is like kind of a downward choppy guy, they might really exaggerate kind of an upward swing on some drills and stuff like that. Feels that, doing drills and things that aren't necessarily what would be totally right mechanically, but that can create kind of the right mechanics, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So like my philosophy in hitting really doesn't have a good answer for that. I guess feel was everything for me. I feel like, in pro ball, you're in pro ball for a reason. You had to have a good swing at some point, and just as long as you're not practicing and repping the wrong thing and you're practicing and repping the right thing, that's what's going to keep you consistent. But like I said, for me, it's feel, I guess, over real, just based on the ball doesn't lie. So when I work out, I'm paying attention to that ball flight, and I'm making very small, if any, adjustments until I get it right.
Yeah. Love that. Best and worst baseball movies. And I swear back in the day, you used to be able to quote that Crash Davis paragraph word for word. I'm not going to make you say it right now, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do. That's a good one. For me, like I thought of three good ones last night, and it was The Natural, which has always been my all-time favorite. The Sandlot, which just brings me back to when baseball was pure,
so pure. Yeah.
And For Love of the Game, I really liked the story of Billy Chapel with Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my three favorites.
Oh, is there one you don't like a worst one?
The Benchwarmers and Major League 3. Those were horrible.
You're right. Blasphemous. Major League 3 was just like, why did they do that to that franchise? Come on. Favorite team growing up? Were you a Cubs guy growing up?
No, I was a Braves fan.
That's right. Oh God, why did I think? I'm kicking myself in the butt right now. We were Braves buddies. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that'll easily answer your next probably couple questions.
Yeah, let's go. Top 5 players of all time.
So that one I really don't have. There's only ever been one, and it's Chipper Jones.
Love Chipper, man.
I really
his lefty swing. Gosh.
Oh. Yeah, and he barely missed my prettiest left-handed swing.
He was that guy was. I mean, there are some people that are born to do things. That guy was born to wear a baseball uniform and be out there. And one of my favorite all times too. I grew up worshiping Chipper Jones.
Well, he was a gamer. Like you got to have an attitude and a mentality to be called a gamer, and he had it.
Yeah. Have you read his book?
I have not. No, I didn't know he had.
I'll send it to you, my man. It's a good one. I'll send it to you. So Chipper Jones, yeah, I totally agree about that. Did you look up to anyone locally in the Central Illinois area, kind of coming up?
No, not really. Only because baseball was always kind of backseat to basketball at that point in my life. Yeah. Baseball was just kind of extracurricular. It wasn't really something I thought, was going to be my future at all. I thought basketball was. So there wasn't really anybody locally around me that had, I guess, a resume to look up to like that. My focus wasn't really looking for mentorship in baseball. It was basketball based mostly.
Yeah. Was there anyone locally that you liked competing against coming up? You were like looking forward to this guy.
The Tri-City boys, Walt Patton, Blaine Cravens, I loved.
Studs.
Yeah, and they were good in high school too, but for whatever reason, we always had their number. I remember Walt starting at their place, and we won 21-7 and knocked him out in the third inning. And I don't know. In our senior year, Blaine was pitching, and I was and Lincoln Land was at that game our senior year. Blaine was pitching, and I hit a 3-2 curveball in the right center for a homer. So they were always good, but we always got them,
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? We went on to play with those guys. Two of my favorite teammates, too. Great guys, great baseball players, too. Best, I remember doing this a little bit with you back in the day. What's your favorite baseball video game of all time?
RBI Baseball, regular Nintendo, hands down.
Oh, man. What's so classic. What I do remember playing with you was we played a lot of that NCAA baseball when it come out. Remember that?
Yeah.
MVP.
Yeah.
The MVP series switched. Man, that was fun. All right. I texted you about this. I didn't realize you had the same walkout song your whole career. Let's talk about your walk-up music.
Basically, it only changed a couple times, but for very short each time. But it was always Ladies and Gentlemen by Saliva. It was unique. Nobody else really had it at the time. I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but when I did, it took off and became kind of a fan favorite when I started using it. And the Skeeters, their RPA guy, he really embraced it too. And, since I retired, anytime I was, kind of talking to the grounds crew on the field, if I go and watch a game, at the rare occasion I do, he'll play it up there on the speakers when everybody's leaving the ballpark, and I don't know, it stuck. And the one in Lincoln Land, before I even discovered that, Ladies and Gentlemen, was Foo Fighters' Hero from Varsity Blues.
Yeah.
And for a couple stints in pro ball for about a week at a time, it was Electric Feel by MGMT.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm bringing you back to a couple of Lincoln Land questions here. I think this one was from Henry Hurwitz. What was the worst conditioning we did at Lincoln Land? Tree lines, zoo run, church run, suicides? Or I want to touch on this. Remember Bull, we jokingly call him Ronnie sometimes, but he would shoot for like down and backs or suicides. And it was hilarious because it was like a little kid shooting. He would get all the way down to like his dang knees trying to get that ball up there. And he'd hit 40-foot threes. I mean, it was, anyway, worst conditioning at Lincoln Land.
Oh, I dreaded those tree lines. It was always freaking cold, but I think my least favorite was when we had to run to McDonald's by Cracker Barrel and back on Toronto Road.
That was brutal.
And it's 35 degrees. You're in 2 layers of sweats and dying, and watching traffic just honk at you go by was demoralizing.
What's the best Big Bull sandwich of choice?
Oh, jeez. I mean, if you would just put the cheese on the cheeseburger when you order a cheeseburger, it would be my favorite. So just take the cheese out of the wrapper so I don't have a cold piece of cheese on my hot cheeseburger.
All right, let's go back to a couple Lincoln Land guys here. Who do you think was the funniest Lincoln Land teammate you had?
Joey Alsmeyer.
He was hilarious. Best fastball.
Best fastball. I got to say Walt Patton. He probably had the most effect on swings and misses.
Best breaking pitch.
Breaking ball. Walt comes to mind just because his slider was so sharp and so tight and had the same spin as his fastball that it was very deceiving. But if we were going to go to the lefty side, it would be Matt Crowe.
Oh, Crowe. Yeah, and Crowe went on to play pro balls a little bit. He got a little bit as a pitcher.
He played with 3 different little arm slots that he tinkered with too, so that kind of changed it.
I'm going to jump off Lincoln Land now and go to pros. I'm just going to ask you some of your favorite. What do you remember? Like, who was the best arm you played with outside of pitchers in pro ball?
Carlos Truenfell. He was an 18-year-old Latin, and he threw 97 from shortstop across the diamond. And I remember playing in Lake Elsinore, California, and they had a white jumbotron behind second base from my vantage point at first base. And I took it square in the mouth and ripped a hole, and I got 9 stitches through my lip because I never saw it from him.
Biggest power you saw?
Ooh, biggest power. Richie Sexton.
Oh, yeah.
Watching him in the thin dead air in Arizona hit taters was impressive.
Really? What about fastest guy you saw in pro ball?
Fastest guy, let's see. I would have to say Tyson Gillies. He was a Skeeter too, but he was a young prospect with Seattle, and I actually helped bring him to Sugarland. But he was, he covered all of the outfield from center field.
What's the best hitting advice you ever got and the worst?
Great question. And I like to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Even though I'm over analytical, but Scott Ellerton, who was a longtime Astro, who was a pitcher for the Skeeters when I first got there in 13. I was having a really good year, but I had a really bad week, and I started listening to too many things. And he comes up to me and he sees me struggling. He's like, T. Scott, just quit thinking up there. You've got 20 guys telling you 20 different things. Just go up there and be a baseball player. And that stuck with me.
No, I love that. Name a couple of worst. What about worst?
Oh, worst advice? Oh gosh. Oh man. Worst advice.
Hitting wise.
I can't even think of bad advice, honestly.
Okay.
I kind of just used everything and threw away the stuff that didn't work for me.
Sure. We'll move on. You obviously played with a lot of ball players over the years. Name a couple of teammates that you thought could have played pro ball that I just never did. I mean, baseball is such a crazy game of timing and being in the right place at the right time, blah, blah, blah.
So I thought, so I've only got a few years to work with on this answer, but the ones I thought that come to mind are Chuck Long. I thought he could make contact really well. He was fast as can be, he had covered the outfield real well. He had good mechanics throwing wise. He had a good arm. I thought I've seen worse in pro ball leading off games. Yeah. I thought Blaine could have had a chance. I thought when Seattle was communicating to me, I thought they might witness something out of him, just with his versatility and his athletic size and body. Good arm, could make contact with power, something.
Blaine was a good player, man. He not only could he pitch it, but he was a good shortstop. He had good skills with the bat. Like, he was well rounded. And I agree with Chuck too. He had a really strong year freshman year. I think he damn near hit 400.
Yeah, I think he's got the single season record or something that from that year for Lincoln Land.
Okay, that works. I think you kind of answered this, but maybe a little further into it. At what point in your career was it about the love of the game and no longer about moving on?
2013 with the Skeeters. So my first year with the Skeeters, that was when it became less occupational and became more family fun. It was like we were 30 guys. We were a family. We were just trying to have fun. We were damn good. We won. And that was real special. We had a core group that I tried to duplicate every year after that season.
Okay. Well, what was your hardest year in baseball?
First year in pro ball, hands down, above and beyond anything else. That transition and how easy it is to get discouraged on that scale was really taxing mentally.
Gotcha. Most fun?
13 year in the Skeeters, same year. We just had something special. We had something so organic, and it just came into fruition at the right time. And we were the best team in all professional baseball according to winning percentage.
We are getting close to the end here, buddy. I can't believe this has been a journey. Some of your favorite places to play versus maybe a couple of your least favorite.
So when I think of that, I think of where I did well, when I liked opposing crowds, and best atmosphere overall in a baseball perspective. And that was Lake Elsinore, California. The visiting team, when we went there, they have a casino in the hotel you sleep at. The field is walking distance from this hotel, and the crowd's packed. It's got a big tall wall like Boston in right field, but it's 310 feet. So I loved hitting homers there. And then there's Somerset, which is Atlantic League. Their crowd really gets into it. It's a great park to see visually, with a great backstop or a backdrop, and just packed every night. Always into it, good energy. And then Chattanooga, the 2 days I was there before I got released, that was a fun place to play. Fun town, great place.
Were there any cool pros that you met along the way that you want to say a little something about? You've already talked about some of those guys kind of along the way. We don't have to sit on that.
I have. And I'm sure I would love to include that. I just can't think of them right now.
Let's move it on. Thoughts on building arm strength?
Okay, good one here. And everybody's got a different philosophy, but whatever works for them works. So, but I was always a huge believer in long toss, and I took that religiously in Lincoln Land, and it carried on in pro ball. And I avoided a lot of arm injuries, I think, because I had a daily dose of long toss most days. And
everyone has variations of long toss. What was yours?
Almost foul pole to foul pole.
Yeah. I mean, were you trying to air it out, or were you trying to keep it on a line as long as you could, or a mixture of both, or?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, I would like to just see how far I can throw it, and however I had to do it to get it there was really how I felt like I was stretching it out. But I think to help answer that question, knowing the difference between soreness and pain, and knowing to throw through soreness but rest when it's pain.
Well said. What are you most proud of from your career, looking back?
That's such a good question too, and you're doing a great job at asking them.
Well, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, but I this was one I really wanted to answer well. So let me just dig through my notes. I really wanted to. Oh, 1 second. Where did I find it on here?
We're at the very end, kind of like 80, 82.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, most proud of. Just kind of defying odds was kind of how I feel, that humble pride. And it's, being a small town kid in a small town basketball school, not knowing anything and being just completely oblivious to knowing what kind of talent I had or how good I really was, to be able to do what I did for so long and have a career out of it. I'm just proud of being, grounded and humble throughout the whole process too. It's easy to let ego stand in your way, and having that ability to keep it out of the way was really something I pride myself on. And last, just seeing the fruition of hard work finally pay off. I never really gave it never really did that until I came to a cross point in pro ball, but that has translated into my personal life, into my professional life after baseball, and just witnessing that fruition from the work ethic I put in was special.
Oh, yeah. It's cool to see it all connect, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Any dumb traditions in baseball?
Yeah. I thought it was dumb, but I always did it. And it was just the pregame handshakes in the dugout before we took the field, and having a unique handshake for each individual before we took the field. So it got kind of out of hand and crazy, but it's all in good fun.
Thoughts on pimping home runs?
So I hate it. I think it disgraces the game. I hate how we're saying let the kids play and let the kids be kids, but it's a freaking grown man's game and respect it. So that's my philosophy. But me personally, I think I've only ever pimped 3 home runs, and I can recall 2 of them happening in the same game at Lincoln Land when Lance Toffelmeyer and I were getting into it, and I hit 2 to beat Parkland that day.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was Trevor when I threw it basically over the umpire's head into our dugout.
Do you have baseball dreams ever?
So that's another good question that I don't think I've ever been asked. And I can't say once I've had a dream about baseball or being in a game and in the moment or anything like that. Yeah. Which is really weird. Either I didn't have them or I didn't remember them, but they weren't vivid enough for me to say I did. So
yeah, it's been interesting hearing people's thoughts on that when I get to that question. And then here's our last one. I'm going to take one answer away from you. It's you already kind of have said it, but I'm going to take it away from you. So bear with me. If you could go back right now and start it over at 18 with the knowledge you have, the experience you've had, what you've been through, what would you do differently? You can't say it's all perfect. you have to give some advice to young 18 T Scott.
Yeah. I wish if I could say something to a 21-year-old T Scott, it would be, you've got a lot of growing up to do. You've got to do it quick. And if you do, your dreams are going to happen. I would have told him to mature as fast as you can. And you're not doing, this has now become a career. It's not become fun and, just fun anymore. It's not your career path. So, yeah.
There you go. Well, T Scott, we're at the end of our questions, buddy. We made it.
Woo! I'm long-winded.
No, dude, you were so incredible. And I mean, just you going down the rabbit hole of all these, you really did take your time thinking about all these answers. And, I don't know, this isn't going to be for your kids today, but someday they'll be able to listen to this and be like, wow, that's what daddy's thoughts were. And your wife and friends and family, like there's tons of vloggers that have been texting me and been like, yo, it's T Scott time. Like, let's go. Like, they're excited. So how was this experience? How was this for you?
It was awesome. It really was. It was therapeutic. It was,
Cool.
It was, but it's a testament to, what you are doing with this podcast. And it's, you ask really good interpretive questions. I just really wanted to make sure I was prepared because they are great questions and questions a lot of these I haven't ever been asked. And I had to do some, digging of my own to come up with how I really wanted to answer those. So you're doing a great job. And I just hope, I really wanted to be prepared for you for this because I don't know who's going to listen to it or not, but I wanted to give you good, honest, pure content. And the fact that you appreciate and kept track of my whole career and paid attention to it is flattering. It really is. And it's flattering being on this podcast for this purpose. But I hope I had a good story to tell because I'm passionate about life. I'm passionate about everything I do and have control over. So that was something that was special to me for 12 years. And I think you're doing a great job. I just think you need to keep this going and keep having stories like mine.
Everyone keeps telling me to keep doing it. Yeah. So I'm going to keep on rolling. I obviously love the game and inquisitive, and I love hearing what people went through. I know, you've known about my whole story and what I went through and all that shit. And I told you that I was going to thank you, and I'm going to thank you right now. There was a little diatribe before we get out of here, but I went through my own journey in baseball, had a lot of surgeries and some promise. And anyway, there was a time when I was at Murray State where my last year, and I was like, 5 surgeries deep and falling apart physically, and things weren't going my way. And I remember having a conversation with you, and you saying something that really touched me, and I've always hung on it. And you said something like, keep plugging away. Like, I think you're good enough to play pro ball, like, just stay at it. You obviously didn't know how much I had fallen off at that point, but it always meant a lot to me for you to say that to me. So thank you for that. Thank you for always being a friend. And, you're a firefighter, and we've had some private conversations. I have mentioned a little bit about what I'm going through on this podcast, so it's not a secret, but you've shared with me also some stuff about how you've dealt with some of the hard stuff in firefighting, and that's been helpful. And it's just nice to have a brother out there, man. I really appreciate you.
Well, likewise, we've got a lot in common, you and I. We know struggles, we know adversities, we know we're very genuine human beings, I think, and so we got a kind of a similar mindset as far as that's concerned. And I just always saw your potential, and not just baseball, but as a human. And I kept in touch because I really like to encourage those kinds of people that are similar to me. And you've gone through a lot in your baseball career physically. And the day I saw you sign a professional contract, I was so proud and just so over the moon about it. And
I remember you being excited for me. That meant a lot to me.
Yeah. And I meant it when I said it, and because you don't know what somebody's going through. They could be, seconds away from wanting to just end it all, and one little tiny sentence can just save their life. So, but you're worth it. It was great keeping in touch. And, like I said, I have a very small circle and I keep that circle close to me, and you're one of the few that are in that circle. So, but that's just a testament to the type of person you are and what you're doing here with this podcast and having a passion project, something I really encourage.
Well, thank you, man. That means so much to me. We got nothing left, man. So I'm gonna let you go here. If you have anything else you want to say, otherwise, do you have anything else you want to drop on us?
No. I mean, I just hope this story, my timeline with baseball kind of affects you, any of these listeners in a positive way, and try to use as food for thought or motivation on knowing what to do, what not to do.
Sure.
But, I just hope there's some benefit, that these listeners can use this from.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, we're going to be on out of here. This is the post-game spread. This was T Sizzle, the big guy, T Scott. I love you, buddy. I'm glad to see life is treating you well. We are out of here. All right.
Thanks, buddy.
See you, buddy.